Hi everybody, this is Noelle from Petitti's Garden Center, and we are talking boxwood today. So this is our plant spotlight on boxwood, everything you need to know about boxwood. Yeah, we all know boxwood for the most part, but it is really a versatile plant that you can put out in the landscape and full sun to full shade. So we're going to kind of talk about all those details. So the first thing we're going to talk about, of course, is the light requirements. With boxwood, they can take that full sun aspect, so that 6 or more hours of direct sunlight, all the way down to your shady aspects, which are actually 4 hours or less of direct sunlight, okay? So really, they do very, very nicely, full sun, part shade, and they might stretch a little bit, but still stay nice and green in denser shade. So keep that in mind. Key here with boxwood is soil. Soil preparation is always important. We're going to tell you that with any type of plant, but boxwood need to have well-drained, well-amended soil. They do not like wet feet, and they have fairly shallow root systems. So you want to make sure that they get off on the right foot, if you will, and really make sure that you add organic matter into that soil. It could be compost, sweet peat, planting mixtures, whatever you can, 50-50 mixture with your existing soil, which is normally clay, unfortunately, with those organic materials. Go ahead and backfill and just make sure that it is draining out. Don't let them sit in water. That's really, really key with boxwood, okay? Once they get established, they can be much more drought tolerant, can tolerate some of our drier summer conditions, you know, in the heat of the summer, but that's not until they're established a year or two down the line, okay? So just keep that in mind. Another thing that we look for, fertilizing. They are a broadleaf evergreen, and normally we would tell you use holly tone, but in this case, I'm going to say use plant tone. The reason being is that they prefer a slightly acidic to slightly basic soil pH, somewhere in the range between 6.5 and 7.2, okay? So in the case of boxwood and also arborvitae, using plant tone and iron tone, typically in the spring. You can feed them again midsummer if you like, but really a good time to feed them is sort of late fall, so they have that fertilizer ready at their root system for when they start to actively grow again for springtime, okay? So plant tone and iron tone, keep that in mind. If you were to put holly tone down around them, really it's not a problem, but after a while you're going to get that acidic buildup, which is not necessarily something that they appreciate, okay? After that, let's talk about maybe planting any time of the year when you can dig in the soil. Great time to transplant is going to be in fall. That's really the best time to move the boxwood around. So if you need to do that, fall is a great time to do that. You can propagate boxwood, no problem. Again, you can take about 6-inch cuttings off the boxwood, new growth, take about 1/3 of the lower leaves off, dip that stem in rooting hormone, and then go ahead and place it in a well-drained pot with potting soil or perlite. Make sure it's moist, and then you're going to cover it up or tent it with a clear plastic bag. Make sure that it kind of creates that greenhouse condition with a lot of humidity, and they should root fairly well for you at that time of year. Be careful, you're not supposed to be propagating anything that has a trademark or a register mark, so just remember, look out for that when you're propagating. Okay, another thing that we love about boxwood, and I mentioned it before, is the versatility, but out there in the garden, you can use it in so many different places. And for the most part, they're kind of low, mounded to slightly pyramidal, maybe a little bit columnar, evergreen shrubs. So they're going to give you interest year round. You have your fall interest covered, you have winter interest covered, year-round interest covered. So you can place them in front borders, you can place them in perennial gardens as kind of a low hedge. Gosh, everybody uses them in herb gardens and knot gardens because they take so well to pruning, and that brings up pruning. I totally forgot it. I skipped over it, and it's pretty important. Boxwood can be pruned fairly hard. or you can leave them alone. They really can take either or. And I'm going to tell you, best time to prune them is going to be that late winter, early spring time period when the plants are just starting to come out of dormancy. You can really trim them back about 50% their height. You can also take out some of the older branching through the middle. Try to open them up to light and air circulation, which is very beneficial for them. So you can go back in and just thin, if you will, thin out some of those older stems. And that will help that plant grow and fill out and become a little bit sturdier. If you're shearing your boxwood to create more of a formal effect, that's fine. Just make sure that you're shearing until about midsummer, and then I would discontinue any pruning, any shearing on these guys so you don't kind of damage them going into the colder fall and winter months, okay? So that's pruning. Let's get back to the uses. How about one of the best deer-resistant plants out there and rabbit-resistant plants? They do have a little bit of a smell to them. I should say a little to a lot of a smell. When you plant your boxwood in full sun, they tend to release that odor a little bit more than they're in the shade, and that'll happen. So just be aware of that because they do have a fragrance to them. I will tell you that they are very, very good as far as just establishing a good backdrop, or like I mentioned before, a good hedge. Very, very nice and probably most commonly used for that. I will tell you, gosh, you can put them just about anywhere and you're going to have good success with them. So let's talk about varieties. Now, boxwood family is sort of separated into two different types. The one type is what we call a common boxwood or Buxus sempervirens, and there are some varieties, or let's say hybrids of that variety kind of put together. They typically grow a little bit taller. They have kind of darker green foliage. The foliage might be a little bit more elliptical or slightly just more pointed at the end, and I'll tell you about those guys. And then we also have the little leaf or Buxus microphylla or phylla, however you like to say it, varieties. And we see a lot of those out in the nursery, especially hybrids of the Buxus microphylla or little leaf type. So let's talk about those, and it'll kind of give you a good idea of maybe which direction you want to go with your boxwood, okay? So first of all, there is a Korean boxwood, okay, that is wonderful. It has very rounded foliage to it. And when Taylor does a close-up, you'll see it's sort of oval, rounded edge to it. And they kind of have a light green color when they come out, when that new foliage comes out. And then it starts to deepen. They can get a little bit of a bronzy tone to them. That's just natural, okay? So this happens with the Korean boxwood, no problem. The key here is that Korean boxwood are the most cold hardy, okay? So we're talking negative 25 degrees, zone 4 or 5, okay? So they will do very, very well for us over the winter in Northeast Ohio, no problem whatsoever. So Korean, you could stick with straight Korean, or you could kind of move into sort of subcategories. So this one right here is going to be Wintergreen. Wintergreen is a Korean seedling, okay? It actually came from the Korean boxwood, and it was selected for its habit and its growth. Wintergreen is very nice. Again, more of that yellow green or chartreusey green to medium green when it does start to harden up and become that mature color, but very tight mounded habit. I'm going to tell you maybe 2 to 4 foot, 4 foot at its fullest growth, like let's say 15 to 20 years down the line here. So still a very, very compact evergreen boxwood, all right? And then I have Winter Gem next to this. So Winter Gem, again, is part Korean boxwood, if you will. Again, rounded foliage or oval foliage, sort of a light green color right now. Very nice. These two actually are very, very similar. This one's just a younger one in its pot. But again, rounded foliage. It just kind of depends on, or excuse me, rounded habit. It just kind of depends which one you prefer when you come to select either Wintergreen or Winter Gem. And then this is Sprinter. So these two are Sprinter here. These are Proven Winner varieties. They are fantastic. They look absolutely gorgeous right now. And I'm going to tell you that they are actually an improved version of Winter Gem. So again, has that Korean heredity there where it's going to be very, very cold hardy, beautiful rounded oval foliage. The habit on Sprinter, they grow pretty quickly. So they're fast, hence the name Sprinter. So you're going to get a few inches on this boxwood per year. But again, 2 to 4 foot tall and wide, basically, as they mature. And I wanted to show you the difference between like a 2-year-old versus maybe a 4-year-old. Okay, so they do grow really quickly for a boxwood plant. Okay, now we're going to switch gears a little bit. And now I'm in what we call the green series. Okay, so the green series of boxwood was actually developed by Sheridan Nurseries up in Canada. And these boxwoods are a little bit different. You can tell they're a little bit darker in color. They are that common boxwood also mixed with the little leaf boxwood. So they're hybrids, okay? They're kind of interspecific hybrids because they have the best of both worlds here. They have good cold hardiness. They do have that darker color and kind of darker leaves. So you see green velvet here. Green velvet does have, definitely when we compare Sprinter and green velvet, much darker coloration, and the foliage again is more oval or elliptical, has a little bit of a pointier end to it, I guess is how I would say it. New growth comes off. It's nice and kind of that yellow to medium green. And then of course, if you look down deeper into the plant, it's a much darker green for you, okay? Green velvet again, mounded type, about 2 to 3 foot tall, could get up to 4 foot tall, again, kind of slow growing. Okay, back here is Green Mountain. So I have Green Mountain, just kind of natural shape, and then I have Green Mountain sort of pruned or shaped for you as a pyramidal plant. Green Mountain, of course, is taller. It is a taller variety, and it does have kind of an upright, sort of lends itself to that pyramidal habit as it grows. Again, probably about 3 to 4 foot tall, 3 foot wide on this plant as it gets full grown. But again, nice dark color on the foliage as it matures. And then this one over here, this is Green Gem. And Green Gem is going to be kind of the tightest, smallest boxwood that you have. New foliage can come out rather small. And then as you look down in the more mature foliage, it's going to be a nice medium to deep green, a little bit larger elliptical shape on that foliage. These guys do sometimes have yellow underneath the foliage. Sometimes they have a bronze color. They'll develop that bronze color over winter. It's okay. That's kind of a natural coloration for boxwood, especially when it gets colder out. You're going to start to see kind of the loss of chlorophyll and kind of that browning, if you would. So not a problem whatsoever. It's very, very typical of this plant. I wanted to mention with the boxwood as well, winter protection. If they're out in very, very windy areas, very cold areas, like a northwest corner or out in the landscape where they're getting a lot of wind, it's always good to either spray them with Wilt Stop, or, which is an anti-desiccant spray that I've mentioned, I know, many times before, or go ahead and give them a burlap wrap. If you don't like to see that bronzy or that dry look on them, or in the spring you're finding you have a lot of dead tips or dead growth, do keep that in mind for a little bit of protection. So this is boxwood in a nutshell. Again, very easy plant, very low maintenance, very versatile, can go in a lot of different areas, great for rock gardens, deer resistant. You just really can't go wrong and always have something to look at out in the landscape. Enjoy.